Hello, welcome back to my channel. You're with Joanne. Look, I don't know whether I'll be on live later. I just have to see how things go. I had a really great day yesterday, but I wanted to ask you a question. Was Friendly Geordies responsible for the New South Wales government demise? What do you reckon? Well, it's a question that the Independent Australia has actually looked at and examined. So let's have a look and see what they've got to say. And then I'm really looking forward to seeing what you think in the comments below. Friendly Geordies and the New South Wales government demise. So the resignation of the Premier and Deputy Premier of New South Wales, blaming ICAC and Friendly Geordies, respectively, single the worst time of mourning for establishment media, writes managing editor Michelle Penny. Why did both Premier Gladys Berejiklian and Deputy Premier John Barilaro choose to resign within days of each other? Did the New South Wales Independent Commission Against Corruption, ICAC, bring about the sudden resignations of either or both of these politicians? If so, does New South Wales ICAC require further scrutiny because it makes MPs terrified to do their job, as the Deputy Prime Minister suggested? And what role, if any, did Friendly Geordies play in the bizarre events of the past week? Whatever the answers to these questions, one thing is certain: neither Berejiklian or Barilaro's resignations were brought about by the public interest journalism of Australia's establishment media. Never has the coalition public relations machine that now occupies the nation's fourth estate displayed more blatant bias and downright negligence than in the media coverage in the days following the implosion of the New South Wales government. The shameless failure to hold the Premier, Deputy Premier, and their whole entire coalition government to account after their respective resignations has been nothing short of breathtaking. These failures would be comical if they weren't so telling as to how far the mainstream media has fallen. So that's the breaking news, the resignation. When the former Premier of New South Wales suddenly chose to announce her resignation this week, expressions of sympathy for Berejiklian dominated news reports. It falls on us, then, to remind the general populace that Berejiklian has not died or been the victim of some terrible injustice, but is instead being investigated for corruption and breaching public trust by the state's independent body charged with this responsibility. It appears the media cable is suffering from collective amnesia, since even a short trip down memory lane reveals a Premier who had a secret relationship with one of her ministers, covered up and lied about it, awarded millions of dollars in grants for his business interests while still involved with him, instructed her office to shred documents that may have provided evidence of her wrongdoing. When first questioned by ICAC in 2020 about these dealings, repeated that she couldn't recall details more than 150 times, and then freely decided to resign rather than simply stand aside, as other premiers have done, while the corruption allegations against her are investigated. John Call Me Pork Barilaro, meanwhile, seems to have taken inspiration from former Attorney General Christian Porter, who, while on mental health leave, decided to sue the ABC for defamation over the reporting of the allegation against him, then chose to abandon the lawsuit and then claimed this amounted to vindication. Barilaro similarly chose to take defamation proceedings against YouTube comedian and political commentator Jordan Shanks Macavina, and is now claiming the lawsuit, which Barilaro instigated, is taking an intolerable toll on his health, such that it contributed to his resignation. And that's a clip to that. Shanks Macavina told IA yesterday, Bros can claim his demise came from the supposed racial abuse he suffered from me, a very defamatory claim, I might add. He can't behind parliamentary privilege either, as he said it under a tree where the ghost of a koala was hopefully peeing on him. It was Friendly Geordies, of course, who continued to shine the spotlight on Barilaro's shameless funneling of public monies into those electorates that served his political ends. Time will tell if Barilaro will also drop his defamation case, before likewise claiming victory. Of course, this could be the reason Barilaro resigned. However, perhaps the revelations that may be unearthed by his actions against Friendly Geordies, together with a possible appearance before ICAC, yet to be confirmed, may have some bearing on his sudden exodus. Meanwhile, back at the mainstream media ranch, David Koch gesticulated with outrage and demanded answers from the PM as to whether New South Wales ICAC needed to be reformed. Who the hell are they, ICAC? Who are they responsible to? Who reviews them? Does ICAC need to be reformed? The Prime Minister, seizing the scrutiny avoidance baton handed to him by Barnaby Joyce, answered in a sombre tone, "It's not a model we've ever contemplated at a federal level. Because, wait for it, you've got to have processes that assume people are innocent before proven guilty. A blatantly false statement that does not reflect New South Wales ICAC's remit or actions in any way, but that didn't stop the media at large from pouncing on the investigative body instead of the politicians it is investigating. However, not only have these media insults to our intelligence continued ad nauseum, they are now accompanied by full-on offensive on the supposed misconduct by Labor state premiers. Staining the cover of yesterday, the 6th of October, The Age, now unrecognisable shadow of a former hard-hitting publication others once emulated, is not an image of either of the fallen New South Wales politicians. Instead, it featured a photo of Victorian Premier Daniel Andrews along the headline, "Graft Body Examines Role of Premier in Firefighters Deal." This was followed by reports of Andrews defending himself. The mere mention of the Victorian Premier, of course, prompted Victorian Shadow Attorney General Tim Smith to call for Andrews' resignation. Sadly, as the old adage, the truth never getting in the way of a good story, now seems to form the motto for many mainstream publications. This ridiculous beat-up was even picked up as a big story by the ABC's Michael Rowland. Leaving aside the fact that he's not Berejiklian or Barilaro on the cover, despite its misleading headline, the farcical report does not even indicate that Andrews is the subject of any investigation. In a radio interview later, yesterday, Smith admitted to having no idea whether the investigation even involved Premier Andrews. Where, you may ask, is the outrage over both the Premier and the Deputy Premier of New South Wales abandoning ship on the cusp of that state opening up under persistent dark clouds of alleged corruption gathered years ago? Then we've got the video here of the Prime Minister. As Mike Carlton pointed out on Twitter, consider replacing Gladys Berejiklian with Eddie Obeid in the following statement from Scott Morrison with respect to federal ICAC. "I'm sure there are millions of people who are seeing what's happened to Gladys Berejiklian and understand that's a pretty good call not to follow the model. So let's replace it. I'm sure there are millions of people who are seeing what's happening with Eddie Obeid and understand that's a pretty good call not to follow that model." Rounding off a week of irresponsible, if not downright idiotic reporting, yesterday on Afternoon Briefing, ABC's Jane Norman asked the Centre for Public Integrity, Stephen Charles, AOQC, about federal ICAC. Is there a risk here that if you allow a corruption watchdog to look back, well, then if there's a change in government, the new government might use that watchdog to sort of settle political scores or level the unsettled scores, a standard of journalism which we can only aspire. Shanks Markovina is nonetheless philosophical about Barilaro's exit, telling IA, "Yet, despite Barilaro blaming me directly, I'm sad to see him go. A massive cancer like that who, recalling his proudest accomplishments in office, listed the destruction of the Kosciuszko National Park as numero uno, the best thing he ever did in his life. That, ladies and gentlemen, is a once-in-a-lifetime gift to comedy. When will we ever see someone that overtly dumb in such a powerful position again?" Perhaps when racing to the defence of Berejiklian and co in future, the establishment media could instead take Shanks Markovina's lead and at least find something to report that carries an element of truth, however terrifying. So, tell me what you think. I'm interested to hear what you think about that article from IA. A lot of what was said was true because the media has made it look like that Gladys and Braz are victims in all of this. As we keep saying, that ICAC wouldn't have had anything to investigate if there wasn't anything questionable. And why did she resign rather than stand aside? I don't know. But I'm interested to hear what you think and tell me in the comments below. I hope you have a good one. And as I said, I may or may not be back later. But bye for now.